Well, we're here again. Hello, welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. Very somber podcast this week by myself to go through the loss to the Hawks and just everything that's going on right now. And it didn't feel right to have a big, exciting intro like normal. So apologies if you feel like it's a little bit jarring, but yeah, I guess I'm here to break all this down. And that was a disaster. There is just no other word for it. Everything that could have possibly gone wrong went wrong. And now Carlton's 2024 season, it's on life support. Everything is bad right now. In the span of 6 weeks, the Blues have gone from 6 points clear in second spot to out of the 8. And that feeling of just real disappointment, that feeling that we all know it's back, just what a disaster. There's only one club in the world, I mean, apart from Essendon, to throw them under the bus there, quick drive-by. There's only one other team other than us that could bottle it. It's insane. And we just wanted to believe that we were past this, that we'd finally turned that corner. But just like that, we've outdone all the work of the second half of last year and everything that was shown this year. We wanted to believe that we were that team that you could trust, that even if there was a poor week, a poor quarter, we could come out and turn it all around. We were that top 8 team. We were that strong contender, someone you could rely on. Unfortunately, we've now kind of shown everyone that we are that team that every opposition supporter and fan so desperately wanted us to be. We're a basket case. We're weak, incapable of not embarrassing ourselves. Like it's that Simpsons meme. And I feel like a few other people have said the same thing. So apologies for going back over it. But it's that, Mr. Burns, Abe Simpson, can't you just go 5 seconds without embarrassing yourself? And then his pants fall down. It's literally that. That is us right now. And weirdly, the week has been built around celebrating 160 years of Carlton, 160 years of our history. And they paraded around the legends, spoke about the premierships and all the past glory. But unfortunately, it's just that. Echoes of the past. There is no base of that old Carlton in the present reality of Carlton. To many who were there to actually experience and see Carlton as the mighty powerhouse, I understand that might still be how you see things. But unfortunately, to me, to people of my generation, I was born in 96. We haven't won a premiership in my lifetime. I have not seen any success. To me, Carlton, unfortunately, and I don't want it to be this, and I don't want this to disrespect the past in me saying this, but to me, Carlton represents failure, false hope. And again, not to be disrespectful of the past glory, but why do we always need to bring it up? It happened. It's great. But fans my age, we don't resonate with it. To a degree, we don't care about hearing how good we were 30 plus years ago. Oh, here's a 1970s documentary. I don't care. That documentary would be great if we were winning and this generation had done something, but it's just not my Carlton. And I hope people can understand that. And I've heard some talk similarly to that and talking about why coming out here and celebrating 160 years, it's more frustrating than it is a celebration of this club. And the disappointing part of that is, next year it's going to be the same. Next year, 2025, 30 years since our last premiership, and they're going to come out and have that big 1995 celebration. Remember the past. Here's Cooter again. How good's this? Bring out sticks. The issue with that is, it's just a reminder of the fact that it's been 30 years since we were good. That's what these glimpses back into history are. No longer is it something to look back and be proud of to fans of my vintage. It's remember when we used to be good? Well, we're not now. So let's embarrassingly remember that it's been 30 years now since we were good. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But as negative as I am, right now, and in this review. So apologies, I'm normally quite optimistic. You're not going to get that in this episode. You're definitely going to get a bit more hopeful rhetoric from me in the preview show. So if you don't like that negativity, maybe this one won't be the one for you, but I will be positive on the preview show, building up the West Coast game this Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Blue Abroad or wherever you listen to your podcast. So if you want the positivity, it'll be there. Today, it won't be. But in saying that, and this is this weird element that I'm in right now, and I want to know how everyone else is feeling. So drop that in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner if you listen to this in audio. But in saying how negative everything is, this might be stupid, but I am wary of overreacting. As dumb as it sounds, there is still a chance that this is a blip. That even though it's not acceptable from the position that we were in, we could still make finals from here. We could still have a decent finals campaign. And even if we do stuff up this season, have a poor end, don't make finals, it's compounded by the injuries, there is a chance that we can turn it around next year, because progress, I get, sometimes it isn't linear. Strange things can happen. However, I'm just sick to death of having to say that. To say, oh, I hope it'll turn for us. We gave ourselves in 2024 the best opportunity that we've had, and yet we let it slip through our fingers. We fall apart mentally when that pressure builds, and look what happens. And so from a fan point of view, it almost has this feeling of, Carlton, if you're just going to be shit, be shit. Don't let me get sucked in again. Don't make me start believing. And that's kind of where I'm sitting right here, right now. I wanted to take an extra day on recording this review, this Hawthorn review, because I was still really salty on Monday night. And I thought, I want this to be a bit more balanced. I want this to be a better review. But weirdly, I'm still in that space. But regardless, I'm going to try my best to be level-headed, because no one wants to hear me rant for an hour as well. I guess we'll see how it goes. But I think before we do head into the review, I just wanted to preface a few things from this game. The injuries, they happened. They were big. It definitely caused a lot of the issues. It definitely hampered us in that second half. Structurally, rotations. It was a big reason why the margin blew out so much. But in saying that, the first half was horrific, and that is pretty much what I'm going to be basing most of my opinions on from this game. That first half, it truly was where we lost the game. The game was lost by halftime before the injuries hit. So that's where this is all coming from. And let's try to answer that question. Where did it all go wrong, and why has it all broken down? And I think you could really tell from that first bounce what was going to happen in this game against Hawthorn. Just wasn't our day. We lacked that energy. We lacked that intensity and pressure. I mean, Hawks get the first clearance out of the center. Such an easy goal. The first two were so easy. Halfbacks press up when we lose possession. That's been a trend in quite a while this season. They create way too much space behind them. Defenders have to push off their opponents to cover, and it just over the top, easy goal. And I might be jumbling up the two goals, but then, ball goes inside 50. There's a lack of focus, intensity, goes through everyone, easy goal again. And this has been poor since quarter time of that GWS game. And what's so frustrating about all of this is that both teams went into this game knowing finals are on the line. Their seasons are in the balance. This game, win this, and you get finals, pretty much. Only one team played like finals, and their season was on the line, and it wasn't us. And the start and the lack of intensity and pressure was there when you look at the stats. We were negative 30 in uncontested possessions in the second quarter. And that's work rate. That's a lack of team defense and structure. You can't allow your opposition to have so much of the ball, specifically on their terms. And a team like Hawthorn, who they don't need a lot of the ball to hurt you as well. I mean, the Hawks had, 6 more inside 50s for the second quarter and turned that into 5 goals, 4 behinds. That's 34 points and 9 scoring shots from 17 inside 50s. While we had 11 inside 50s ourselves, managed 0 goals, 3 behinds. We were held goalless and we did not register a mark inside 50 for the quarter. Work rate wise, we registered only 19 tackles in the first half and ended the game with our lowest ever tackle count for the season at 47. Just horrifically poor. And I guess talking about the mentality of this group, that has also just dropped away incredibly. They want to be physical, work for each other defensively. It's dropped off. How many missed tackles were there this week? And weirdly, we've seen when it's on, that Geelong game, we were ferocious. It was every single player running, working. Major questions now have to be asked as to why that's fallen off so much in this last 6 weeks. Why are those players just so incapable of bringing the heat from the start of games? Now knowing what is on the line for them, that should motivate these boys. I don't understand why they're looking at the pressure side of it. That's what it feels like. They're seeing, okay, season's on the line. It's, oh no, what about the failure? It isn't, this is a great opportunity, let's go for it. Because if it was that positive outlook, we wouldn't have seen this drop off. We would be playing good football and we would have come out strong against Hawthorn. And I think what was glaring really being at the game was just how poor defensively we were also set up across the ground. It was almost under 10 stuff. It was so frustrating to have to watch this. Big credit to Hawthorn. I thought they came into this game well prepared. They executed perfectly. All Hawthorn had to do was just hold their width. They went in with this plan of using really every inch of the MCG. They always had 1 or 2 players spare wide into the space as an option, that if they won the ball, if there was a turnover, they had that option wide, or they're at least able to sort of stretch our defense, make us have to go with them. And thought too much of the time we didn't go with them when we needed to. We weren't moving as one defensively. And also Hawthorn, they use and utilize that switch so well, which we knew was going to be something headed into this game. That's how they like to play. That's their DNA. All Hawthorn had to do for the whole 4 quarters was just be disciplined, keep their width, stay wide, stay in that space, wait for us to get sucked in to the contest like they knew we would, and just put the ball over the top into space. And it was just going to be a domino effect around the ground, like in that first goal. And it almost looked like we didn't have a plan for the Hawks when we knew they were going to play this way. It was such an obvious thing going in. Their game is built on the switch and their movement. They hurt teams with quick kicks and that quick run from the back. So what was our game plan heading in? Why, if we had one, which obviously we do, like I'm being ridiculous there when I say it, but what game plan did we have going in and why didn't it work? Why did it look like on the surface that we didn't have a plan for it, that we weren't expecting them to play this way? Is it coaching? Are we set up so poorly? Is it that the players are dumb? Are they ill-disciplined? Can they not adhere to simple structure? Because I understand that it takes every single player out there to buy in, to be committed, work for each other, that team defense to hold up. It's everyone as a collective. I think the problem overall is that it's a bit of both here, and that's concerning. At least if it was just one aspect, if it was just coaching, if it was just players, the fix would be a lot more simple. But right now, everything's going wrong. It's not just one person. It's not one department, not one aspect of the club's fault. It's everything. And I want to make that distinction now because I'm going to go into multiple avenues of this, and I don't want someone to think that I'm just saying it's one, because it's everything right now. So defensively, we're poor, but then when we have the ball in hand, it's horrendous. There just looks to be no systematic way in which we attempt to move the football. I said it last week. We win the ball. It's so reactive. We don't have that. If we don't have that clear first option to give and go, that we don't know what to do. The pressure starts to build and we turn the ball over. How many times did we win the football? And you could see us thinking out there. It was this almost, shit, what do? I don't know who to pass to. Who's there? It just falls apart. And if you're thinking on the field, that's when it's already too late. You need to know exactly where you're moving the ball, where the other players are going to be, where they need to be in those positions to help and become options. Hawthorn were the perfect example of how it works. It looked like a wave because it was instinctive. Whereas, I mean, when we win the football, we get it, we kick to no one, we turn it over because this isn't drilled. There is this not drilled in plan. There's no connectivity between the players. You look at Collingwood's chaos ball, there is this high pressure, win the ball from turnover and then just spread. And they embrace those imperfections because they trust that everyone is going to be sticking to their role. They're going to move it together, that even if they stuff it up, if there is a mistake, they'll win the ball back and keep going. Our chaos ball, it's meant to be this bring the pressure, bring the heat in that front half, which we haven't seen for God knows how long. And then we'll win the footy and just hope Charlie gets it down the line. Just hope that there's a player there for the handball. Rarely is there a smart entry inside 50 to a smartly structured forward line. And when I'm looking at, quote unquote, a Carlton goal, I'm not seeing it out there. If you ask me, what is the plan? What is that quintessential Carlton goal? I don't know what it is. And it should be something that's so well drilled in, this brand, this identity. Most teams have that. I think ours right now is hope we win the ball from a center clearance, bomb it inside 50, and then hope Charlie or Harry kicks it. It isn't system, at least from what I'm seeing. And I said last week that last quarter wasn't system. It wasn't coaching. It wasn't game plan. It was that the players stepped up. They wanted to win it. And it was pure determination and that energy and willpower that allowed us to win those contests and drove the ball forward. And it was a bit down to luck and just that wave of pressure. There was no set play going forward with ball in hand. And that's what I'm identifying as one of the biggest issues right now. We can get into the mentality side as much as we want. And that is clearly a big aspect of this as well. I don't just want to gloss over it. But structure and game plan is such a big issue from what I saw on the weekend and what I've seen in these 6 weeks. We're one of the worst set up sides in the AFL. We don't have that identity. And the reason I think I'm bigger on the coaching than I am just the mentality, why I'm harping on it so much, is that when you look at this indecisiveness to how we play, we aren't seemingly connected with one another. There's this doubt that seems to creep in offensively with ball in hand, team defense, everything, positioning, all of it. When this happens, when we're indecisive, that's when the coaching and system are meant to take over. So we don't have to think out there. It's meant to be so we can just fall back on what we've been taught. That's the instinct. That first move without having to truly think about anything, that should be so inherently drilled into us that it doesn't matter if we doubt ourselves because they're going to be there. And I've heard fans talk a little bit about that we play best when we play on that instinct. But I'm not sure that that's instinct from what I've seen. Like, I think that that's just individual talent shining through a lot of the time. A perfect kick, perfect mark. Oh, here comes Cripper being Superman. Charlie doing, the miraculous that we know that he can do. That's not instinct to me. Coaching is meant to be the thing that gives you the instinct. Everyone on field knows exactly what they're meant to do. When player X wins the ball here, this is where I'm meant to be. This is the running patterns. Everything should be so simple. This is where we move the ball. And that instruction should be what becomes the instinct. Right now, we don't have that. Our whole game plan seems to be if the first option isn't there, it falls apart. There is no other plan. If it's there, we win the game beautifully. But a system needs to have more than one option. You looked at Hawthorn, to their credit. What I loved about how they moved the ball was they got numbers to the dangerous space to help each other. If option 1 wasn't there, they had multiple numbers around the football. Everyone was on the same page. And another thing I noticed that was when they did win the ball, if there wasn't that first option, they always would go out the back of stoppages, out of that congestion to that quarterback position. They always had players out there to, be that safe out if they needed to. If they had no other option, they could turn, go back, and all of a sudden they had players facing the ground to take the game on. Us, on the other hand, we rarely go back when we're in that trouble. It always seems to be that forward handball that we do instead, or it's super loopy, floated handball to either someone under pressure or they're flat-footed, they're not facing the right way. And that just invites way more pressure, makes it so much more difficult to execute skill-wise, and that leads to those turnovers. A lot needs to change from these coaches. That is clear and evident from this, but to give them a bit of an out, because I go so hard on them, it's also on the players. There needs to be a willingness to work for each other and be switched on. And that's not happening right now, because even if there is this great game plan, the players, how they're playing right at this moment, they do not seem capable of being mentally in the game and being able to execute what's being asked. Just everything, as I'm mentioning, is just going wrong right now. And I mean, let me know what you think. Where is it breaking down on field? Do you see a lot of issues with coaching? Is it all mentality? Like we saw midway through last year, Vossi seemed to say it was all his mantra and it just wasn't execution. Is that what you're seeing? Is it up to the players? Is it up to the coaches? Is it both? Let me know in the comments right now. I want the comment section on YouTube to be that therapy session where we can just hash it out, have those conversations. And also head to the socials at Navy Blue Corner if you're listening in audio form to let me know all your thoughts. And I guess something sort of based off that, an area I want to head down is looking at identity. Now, our philosophy and game style is meant to be based on this contest and pressure. And looking at our list profile, our strengths, I can understand why the contest is such a big deal for us. I mean, you look at who we've got in the midfield, it makes sense. But contest and pressure, they're two staples. They're those two stable pieces that every club in the AFL has to be good at. Winning the ball at the contest and applying tackle pressure, they're non-negotiables. What else have we got? What else are we bringing to the table? This feels outdated, that identity of contest and pressure. Every other team, it's about how they move the ball, how they defend. It seems like our identity is based off winning the football and tackling. It's just so basic. And I know it clearly is more than that it is more than just what they say to us. But other teams seem to have such a systematic, this is how we play. This is how we'll do it each and every week. We just don't seem to have that right now. It seems to switch almost too often. One week it's all contest and clearance. Then it's turnover. Now it's back to defending. And I'm all for evolving the game style and adding these new layers, but it needs to be based off the fundamental game style. And right now, it does not look to be that. It's almost like we're going through a bit of an identity crisis. We don't know what we want to be, and we get one element right, and then we shift to get another area of our game style that isn't perfect, and there just is this constant imbalance. We're not committing to what we want to be. What are we? What do we want to be? What are we trying to be offensively? What is the brand that we want to have? Because we aren't skillful, we aren't fast, we don't seem to be getting the most out of our best players. We're not utilizing our strengths. And I think until this changes, I feel we're going to continue to be that side who has some good games, some good patches where the form's great. And all of a sudden we look like a great team. Things are going well. But all of a sudden when we hit that poor patch, when things aren't going our way, that's when you need to rely back on that structure, back on that mentality. We just don't seem to have either. How does that fix? How do you change that? I think you just got to be smarter. You got to go back to what you want to be and stop shifting this because one element isn't going right, because the media are saying you're bad in this area. You're never going to be perfect everywhere. And I hate to harp on it so much. I feel like we do that on this podcast, but Collingwood did that. They knew what their issues were. They built a system around their strengths, accepted the weakness, and they won a flag off it. We need to get to that mentality, to that system. And I think you're going to get the best out of this group. Until we do that, there's issues. And I think lastly on that identity piece, one of the questions that we're all kind of wrestling with as fans is, what is the real Carlton? Is it this team that we saw back half of last year, got us to a prelim, almost so close to a grand final? The team that we saw a few months ago got us to sitting 6 points clear in second spot. Or are we the team we saw first half of last year, the team we've witnessed for the last 6 weeks? And the more you see the bad Carlton, and knowing, I guess, from my point of view as a fan, that the only Carlton that I've known is that club that disappoints, it's really hard to believe that the positive top 2 prelim finalist Carlton is the real us. I can't buy into that right now. And look, if you want to be hopeful, if you want that to be the real Carlton, I guess we've shown that to a degree we're capable of that. We can produce at our best the element where we can go with anyone. We can beat anyone on our day. However, there is such a lack of consistency. It was what cost us top 4 position last year, and it's what might cost us finals in this season. Look back, 2022, first half great, second half abysmal. Last year was the opposite. Now this year it's patchy to begin with, 5 great weeks, followed by 6 horrific weeks. And, when it gets tough, when it gets hard, mentally this group seems to melt. They can't keep it together. I don't know how to fix that. Coaching, list holes, that feels like an easy fix. But the mentality aspect, what's maybe holding us back? I don't know. And we've had these discussions before. That's what is so irritating about this situation for us fans. We're about to, which is a positive thing for us, this podcast. We're getting close to 200 episodes. It's only a couple of weeks away. That feels like a big monumental occasion. But unfortunately, that means that we've talked about Carlton a lot now, and we've talked about a lot of bad Carlton, and everything that these last 6 weeks have been, and what it feels like the rest of this season is going to be built on, is a rehash of what we spoke about in the midpoint last year. I'll go through it. What we spoke about midway last year, the talking points. Boss, he's meant to be the leader. He isn't the tactical guy. Tactically, we're starting to look inept, and the leadership isn't there as well. The messaging from the coaches and the club and, to the outside media, to the fans, it's poor. It's being met with heavy criticism. Players, they look mentally weak. The list is now getting questioned. We're too slow. We have all these deficiencies that we need to fix. And it kind of makes you think, I guess, that element, just looking at that, did we get sucked into the end of last year and maybe not address those issues because we thought we were better than we were? I mean, that's going to be an interesting point to discuss at some stage throughout this episode in the coming weeks. But to go back to all the other issues that were there midway point of last season, strength and conditioning, massive issue. We don't look fit. We look slow, tired, injuries are mounting. And look, at least this time, at this point, we are moving on from Russell, so something can be done about this. However, there's no faith from me, at least. I mean, let me know how you think that we will get it right, because when have we got these appointments right and got things humming for a long period of time? I think ultimately, and until we find a way to be fit enough for long enough, mentally tough, stay healthy, have no injuries, have our best players available consistently to choose from each week. And on top of that, fix the coaching. We're not going to be a consistent final side. We're not going to be that team that contend every single year. There's so many areas you can point the blame at, and it's not just one. It's definitely not one. But until we fix these issues, I feel like I'm harping on that point. Like, we're just not going to be a serious football club. We're not. Now, another key point from the last few weeks, it's messaging from the football club. And the problem, at least where I'm seeing it right now, is I'm not hearing or seeing this accountability from our leaders. Instead of maybe accepting what's going wrong, what's not working, being, truthful, being harsh on one another in the club and even yourselves, we instead, the club's coming out and saying, well, it's all about these learnings. We have going to have some honest, robust, brutal conversations behind the scenes, but we're going to stick together. We'll get to work. We've got these areas we need to work on. That's maybe not good enough, but we're going to get better. All of this. But enough is enough. No more being nice and coddling these players and not holding anyone to account. I'm not sure who's running the PR or the communications at this club, but they're doing a really bad job. The messaging is all based around this flowery, puffy, it's going to be all right. Let's not emphasize or talk about the negatives. Let's keep talking about the positives. Vossi, bring a smile in the press conference. Try to have a bit of a joke. But no one's buying that. No one wants this. Let alone wanting to buy it. No one wants this. I'm not sure who this rhetoric is for, who they think that they're trying to please with it. Right now, we want honesty. We don't want the rhetoric of a rebuilding side because, and even then, I wouldn't want that as a rebuilding side. I would want us to hold us to standards and be ruthless. Effort isn't good enough. We want to win flags. And the talent in this list, there is enough to build around that should be out there. We're in a prelim, for God's sakes, at the end of last season. It's enough to go out there and do it. Standards have been set from the club, from the fans. When are we going to hold ourselves to account and accept some responsibility? I'll myself take some responsibility. I think last week we spoke about Voss in the presser after the Collingwood loss, and I somewhat brushed it off. I tried not to read too much into it, but the longer the week went on, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I'll put my hand up. I got it wrong. The more I listened back, the more I thought, I went, no, I don't like this. I don't like what Vossi said. I hated how he said it. And the perfect sort of example of this was what, Paolo put on Twitter. He had a bit of a side-by-side comparison of what Vossi said straight after the Collingwood loss and what Sam Mitchell said straight after their loss to GWS. And it was just night and day. It was this, I know what coach and what coaching style I want. That's at least what I took out of that comparison. And unfortunately, the verbiage is not what Vossi was saying. It was that Mitchell style, the standard setter is what I would describe it as. So I'm going to put my hand up and say, and say that I'm wrong because the club won't right now. This rhetoric is a massive issue at this club as things stand. And I was at a few Carlton events over the weekend. I was very fortunate to be there. And even the way Brian Cook spoke, that wasn't sitting right with me at the time. He said things along the lines of, look, we have 3 weeks to get better and hopefully, we can make finals. Is that motivating? Is that what you want to hear as a fan, as a player? Oh, we might get a win. We hope we're going to do it. Thank God at least. And I'll credit this man, Ash Hansen. He was, tasked to speak for a little bit and, call him overly optimistic at this stage. But he came out and said, yeah, look, we got 3 weeks to make top 2. That's that's what we want. Now, that might be ridiculous. I don't know if we're even mathematically, whether it was possible for us to make top 2 with 3 games to go, but at least that was refreshing to me. Someone puts it on the table, actually says what we want. We want top 2. We want top 4. We want to win a flag. Someone at the club not being afraid to come out and say it. That's been an issue. And Cook even said something else that I found really interesting at the function. He said, and look, I'm reading too much into this as I always do. Feel free to call me out on that. But it just made me think that the club doesn't get it. It made me feel like they aren't in line with the fans that represent them. He said that when he came to the club, the passion was what blew him away. And he has said this quite a lot, but he sort of added that one of his roles is to try and balance out that emotion at the club. He said, when we win, it's a party. When we lose, it feels like a funeral. And I get to a point what he's trying to say, but I think that there's just a real lack of understanding about the passion of the fans and understanding the reason probably behind that passion. When we're harsh after a loss, it's because we care. Are we nutters? Are we stupid? Should we be getting that low when we lose? Should we be getting that high when we win? Probably not, but that's us. You're not going to change us. So accept it and try to utilize that. When we lose, we're harsh because we want us to be better, because we hold us to such a standard. It's like they only want our passion when it suits them, when it's positive, when it's great, when we speak so positively about the club. And that's where I'm seeing one of the biggest issues around this topic. It's like they're scared of that passion. They have no idea how to handle it. It's probably why they're scared to be honest and brutal to the media, to the fans and the presses. They're scared to show that vulnerability. They think that we're going to eat them alive. We're going to rip them apart. But we're already going to do that because we feel like we're being spoken to like children. There's no honesty. Don't treat us like idiots. We're not idiots. We know when you're speaking PR speak. That's on it. That's obvious. So just tell us something. And I don't think we need to go as far and say that the season's done because it's not mathematically done. We've got 2 games left. We can still win. And to me, if we're saying the season's done, why are we here? So that's not for me. There's 2 games left. Let's focus on that. Let's go for it. That's a part of this conversation. But I think he can still be honest and say that, the opportunity that we've had sitting second, we've been really poor the last 6 weeks. We have not seized on that opportunity, and that's not acceptable. Our actions or lack of actions have put us in this tight spot. We're out of the 8. That's not good enough, regardless of the work that we've put in. We should be in that top 8. We should be in top 4. That's the standards that we want at this football club. The way that it's gone these last 6 weeks, it's poor. Not acceptable. But, where we are right now, that's on us. It's on coaches, staff, players, all of us collectively as one. It's not one person's fault. We're in it together. We win together. We lose together. But it's up to us to sort this out, to go again. 2 games left. Season isn't over. I'm not going to sit here and cop, it's been bad. It's going to continue to be bad. Season's done. No. Let's keep fighting this out. It might feel like the season's over from the outside and the injuries, they're not helping. But, the mentality of this club is that we want to stand for not rolling over, for continue to going. When it gets tough, we keep fighting. Last 6 weeks, it's probably felt like we haven't had that fight in us, but we've got 2 weeks to rectify that. 2 wins, we make finals. Go from there. Best is good enough. We've proven that, but we need to get back to our best. Why can't we say something like that? That's what baffles me. Like, why does it have to be, let's just say the positives. Let's not address what's going wrong. Just say we'll work on it. We'll get better. It's just uninspiring language. It's bad rhetoric. It's time, I think, that this club grows up, accepts that us fans are crazy. So let us into the crazy and treat us with a bit more respect. I think that's a big part that's holding us back right now. If we're not willing to be honest to our fans, are we willing to be honest to the players? And then those questions start to get asked. Because if you can't show that little bit of honesty to us and bring us along for the ride because you're scared of it, well, what else are you scared about? And what else are you holding back from? That's a massive part of what's wrong at this club right now. And I do think that this episode is coming across as a massive Michael Voss bashing. And it's not what I've intended. I hope it hasn't truly come across that way. When I say coaching, I'm not meaning just him. And I've tried to put some emphasis on the players because I know that there's a massive role in that. Mentality is such an issue right now. Mentally, they're not tough. They've shown that when it gets tough, we struggle. Let's be clear. We have not gotten past that phase where we can trust that they're mentally strong, each and every single one of them. But in saying that, I just go back to the motivation of this and getting the most out of the group and trying to change the mentality. And that's kind of coaching. And when you look at everything within the club and when you put a bit of that focus on Michael Voss and just critiquing that aspect, we're not getting the leadership that we hired Vossi to bring. And I'm not saying sack him. Seriously, please, let's not go there. Let's not say that. I'm just critiquing him because his strength is not being shown right now in this moment. When we made the decision to hire Michael Voss, it was him and Kingsley. And it was Voss, let's get him for the leadership. We knew he has these tactical deficiencies, but we decided that we could sort that out. We'll bring in different assistants. We can fix that. His leadership was what the group needed the most. Now, that's not to say that Kingsley didn't have leadership qualities himself, but it was a bit more of an unknown. That wasn't his one wood. We knew Kingsley was the tactical genius. We knew Vossi was the leadership motivation genius. And I think the issue with that plan for Voss was, are we going to have to potentially rely so much on these assistants for tactics. And then all you need is the scenario that we've got at the moment where Hansen looks destined to be the West Coast new coach, and then we're back to square one. And if it happens, do we switch up something? Do we have to change the structure of the coaching department? Do we then need to bring in, and I'm just spitballing here, do we need to bring in a guy like a Adam Simpson, someone who was a coach that it doesn't look likely that they'll take on that head coaching role? So there's a bit more stability in the coaching ranks, and maybe set them up as the dual man with Vossi. Voss brings the leadership, the senior assistant brings the tactics, and then underneath that, you can bring the new guy in, the new Ash Hansen that's maybe that up-and-comer with the tactics. So if they do get poached when they are bringing something a little bit different, it doesn't matter because you've still got that senior assistant there, driving this, that isn't going to leave us for that other, head coaching role. Because this issue, and I'm going to use a bit of a comparison in this. Those that listen to the podcast will know and probably see from what I'm wearing, I'm a massive Philadelphia Eagles fan in the NFL, and we're kind of in the same position, or at least we were last season, where we've hired this motivator head coach. We know he can't run the offense. He's not a play caller. He's not good at it. It's not his strength. We've brought in some really good, offensive coordinators, and that got us to a Super Bowl. But then our offensive, coordinator, they get poached. They've now a head coach. And we had to make a tough decision after our last season unraveled, kind of similarly to this season. We started, I think it was like 11-1, awful back end of the year. When it got tough, when we needed someone to make those big calls tactically, we failed. We fumbled it. And the game is so tactical now that you need that aspect. We didn't have it. Now we're at a point where it was, well, what do? Do we stick with the motivator coach where we know we're going to go through this process again? We're going to bring in that offensive coordinator that can call those plays. And then eventually, once we're good, they're gone, it starts again. Or do we bring in a guy that can do both? And ultimately, Philly, they chose to stick with that motivator coach. And that's where Carlton are right now. I think that we're married to Michael Voss for some stability reasons. We can't be seen to be sacking people. And again, I'm not saying let's sack him. That's not the conversation I'm entertaining here. I'm just saying we're kind of stuck with him now. So what is the plan? And a lot's been made of, are we trying to take a bit away from Hansen at the moment? Is Voss trying to take too much of the reins? And is that dynamic not working? I don't know. Everything is speculation from the coach's box, but clearly there's a breakdown and something needs to change. And these issues, they can't be solved right here, right now. There's something for the end of season, that off season. And I hate that we're having to talk about that with 2 games to go when we can still make finals. It's so frustrating, but that's where we find ourselves when things aren't going right. We're trying to solve it as fans. We're trying to analyze and overanalyze every single aspect of the club. But let me know what you think. What do we do? Knowing that this is just a single solo pod, of course, I've got to go to the fans. I need the listeners. I need some help in this. So we'll go to Grill the Corner, and there was so many questions. It's not funny. I hope that those I don't answer in this episode, there's at least some of the answers, I guess, throughout what we talk about and what we cover. So I'll do my best. If I haven't answered your question, drop it in the YouTube comments. Head over to @NavyBlueCorner. Links are in the show notes in the description. Head over there, DM us, tweet at us, do what you need to, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. But let's head to them because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to do it by myself. I wish myself luck. The first one comes in from Dione Rowe, who says, what did you think of Gov yelling at Kemp when his man kicked a goal in the first quarter? And this was an interesting element. You can argue it shows a little bit of lack of connectivity. I love it, though. I do love when there is someone trying to show a bit of accountability and put it on someone and say you're not in the right spot and tell them they need to be better. It was just it highlights a lot of what's not going right at this current stage. There is miscommunication. Kempy and Gov both push up. One doesn't stay back on their man. There's the miscommunication. Gov has to push back. Turnover. Lose the stoppage. No time to defend. And it all goes wrong. So I like it, but I wish we didn't need to do it. I wish we were more in sync. Let me know what you guys think. Next question comes in from the great Timmy Dubb, who asks, over the past 2 years, Hawthorn have adopted a game plan and stuck to it no matter what. We've fiddled around with ours, probably on the basis that we have higher expectations, and so we can't afford to lose at the expense of sticking to a game plan. Are we paying for that now? And I think so. I think that that's a crucial element of why things have gone wrong, the tinkering and trying to figure out what the balance is. Okay, we're conceding from stoppage. How do we fix that? And then we lose a key component of us. We need to get that identity back. Maybe we can't sort that out now. Maybe that's something for the off season, but figuring out what we want to be and sticking to it regardless, that needs to be the key focal point from us going forward if we want to win a flag. Simple. Next question comes in from Chris, who says, whilst I get that the season is still on the line, I do not believe we should go back to the well with guys like Young, Marchbank, etc. Is it time to see guys like Lemmy, Binns, Lord? What are your thoughts? And I'll go into the team discussion and the exact picks in the preview show coming up Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Blue Abroad. But so I'll leave that to one side, but I think we're probably not in the position to be getting too cute with it all. We don't have a lot of talent actually fit and available. So it's almost a selection of who is there, who is fit, who has shown a little bit of form. Maybe a guy like Young, out of necessity, you probably still need to play. Like if I'm looking between a Young or a Dom to play in the forward line, I'm picking Young because as much as, I want to see what some of these young kids have got, there's 2 games to play. I want to make finals. I don't care if we're making up the numbers. Standards of this footy club, the standards that we want, that we're holding them to account, that we're so annoyed that they've let this opportunity slip, that they've bottled it, is that we win the flag. So it kind of annoys me that we're critiquing, we're not happy, but we're also saying, well, fuck it, season's over, who gives a shit? No, let's be ruthless. Let's be ruthless and say, no, 2 games to go. We put out a team to win. Let's beat West Coast. I don't care if we've got no one fit and available. Put out the team you think will win. In doing that, you're going to see guys potentially like a Lord, like a Lemmy. You can do both. That's where I sit. Some might disagree. I think Chris might disagree with me. I think he doesn't care anymore. He wants to build for future years and see a little bit more of some of this youth. So let me know in the comments below. Next question is from Tim Gigantor. Is there anything redeemable from this season other than hopefully some of the injury-plagued players finally being removed at season end? And tough question to answer. Tough question to answer. I really want to refrain from, again, having these questions thrown out now. There's 2 games to go. We're going to talk about that in the offseason. There's plenty of offseason content. We don't stop at this podcast. We'll continue to keep going, and I'll definitely answer it then. But there's always something redeemable. And that hopeful side of me, as stupid and delusional as it is, it's like I'm a fan. I'm always going to go to each game and think we win. I could have easily left it at quarter time, at halftime, and not watched the rest of the game. I watch because I care about this football club. Call me crazy, but who knows? Things can turn around. Things can happen. So let's not just write things off just yet, but there'll always be some sort of positive. I'll answer that question in the off-season. I like it though, Tim. I think it's a good question. 2 more to go. One is from Bolchi97, who asks, this game further highlights our lack of speed through the middle of the ground. Cripper, Hewitt, Kennedy, Walsh, Akers, Holland, etc. They're all quite one-paced. Do you think we need to recruit or bring in some extra pace to the team to assist both defensively and offensively? And I need to refer to a note I've written in my phone for this one because I think this is a really good point. And it's something we probably haven't touched on a lot throughout this season, that, when things were going bad last year, I think we all maybe potentially overreacted when looking at the list. We were highlighting all these list holes, saying we're slow. We need so many different players to be brought in. So much isn't going right. Mentality, they're shot, start again. Then all of a sudden, season ends well, make the top 8, make a prelim, and we almost underreacted. We went list perfect. And I do understand why we did that. We made the prelim. You think that this team's actually got it. We've turned a corner. Maybe we don't need to strengthen too much, but I think we did underreact. I think we needed to at least realize that there were still list holes that we saw when we were really, really bad and address them from a position of strength, because now we're not in that. We find ourselves in a really tough spot where do people want to come to us if we're not able to turn it around in the next 2 games and show that there's enough? Yeah, the top end talent's there, but is the outside view that this club is a basket case, that there is no consistency? So that's the frustration. So I agree with you. I think there is still this lack of movement and a dynamic player to throw in there. I'll try and find the stats here, but you look at who we even just, threw into the center bouncers. Cripper and Pitto, 22, Hewitt, 20, Walsh, 18, Kennedy, 14, Harry, 3, Elijah, 1. Why did we not try anything different? Now, no, we didn't have a lot of players to choose from, but Motlop, give him a go in the middle. Sard before he gets injured. Try a different outlook. Why are we not getting more from Elijah Hollins? Why is he only getting 1 center bounce? I think we do need to change things up from what we have, and we probably need to address that and bring in some sort of leg speed, because you saw what Hawthorn did to us with that pace. Clearly, it's a gap in our list. I agree, Bolchi. Last question, though, comes in from Ethan, who asks, is a list clean out of the injury-prone players and smart recruiting needed for us to go all the way next year? Or do we need to surround Voss with some experience and respected assistants that cover Voss's tactical deficiencies? And to be incredibly simple with my answer, apologies if you want it really in depth, feel free to message me and let me know. I'll try and be a bit more specific with it, but I think it's clear we need both. And we're probably going to get the clear out of those injury-prone players, having to rely on Martin, Cunningham, name up Marchbank, Williams. Some are going to stay. Some are contracted, we're tied to. But guys like Martin, what can you do? When he's out there, he can be really good. But if he's going down with a hamstring within a quarter every single time he plays, you can't rely on that. It hurts you. All of a sudden, you lose him early, you get an injury like Fogarty. He injures himself, injures Fogarty as well. What do you do? 2 for 1. When those things happen, you hamstring yourself, which is maybe a bad choice of words considering Jack Martin and soft tissue. But I think we do need to fix this. We need to not bank on that it's all going to be good like the back end of last year, that we get a fit team at the right time. Yeah, we're going to get a new strength and conditioning guy. Will that fix things? Time will tell. You can't rely on just fixing what's broken. You need more stability. I think Vossi himself touched on it in the press conference that he's not happy that he isn't being able to select his best players each and every week. So either get them healthy or give me players that are healthy. That's a big thing. And then I think there needs to be some shifts in the coach's box. Hansen will probably leave. Do we need some other assistants to go? Possibly. There's clearly coaching deficiencies right now. Tactically, we're not there. We're moving from things too much. We need a bit more stability in the game plan. We need a bit more tactical nous on game day and game day adjustments, those little tweaks in the game plan. We're not getting all of that right now. So I think we need something. Who that is, I'm not sure. I threw out Adam Simpson's name as the type of coach. I hope people aren't saying I'm wanting Adam Simpson. I'm saying a guy who's been there and done it, that has a little bit of that questioning, that he's going to test Voss. He's not just going to be a yes man in the coach's box and say, yes, Vossi, that's good. He's going to go back and have those constructive chats, but also has that tactical nous. I think we need some of that. We need something from an outside source. And then from the other lines, we probably do need a little bit more. I'd be very shocked if there's not 2 or 3 changes in that coach's box this year. But let me know what you think, and let me know who you want us to recruit, who you think we should be bringing in player-wise that fits some of the list holes, and also coaching-wise. Who do you want us to target? I love each and every bit of it. But now we turn our attention to the votes, which were really tough this week to kind of rattle out this episode. I gave the 1 vote to Blake Acres. I thought he toiled all day. He looked so banged up with those shoulders, but he was still putting his body on the line, doing all the right things. And so I gave Blake Acres the 1. Very stiff for Jordan Boyd not getting a 1 vote. A guy that played with a torn adductor. He's now out for the season. He was on 1 leg, literally just because he said, I want us to have a rotation. Put me at full forward. I'm gone. And he put himself in positions to get hit, the poor bastard. Maybe we shouldn't have let him be out there. Maybe someone should have stepped in, but all credit to Jordan Boyd. He didn't register a disposal. Don't think he got any stats. Horrific. But I mean, shout out to him for doing that for the club. At least you can say he put his hand up and wanted to do that job. We need that from more out there. But Blakers gets my 1 vote. The 2 votes has to go to Lockie Cowan. Almost should have got the 3. What a performance when no one was standing up, when no one wanted to show anything. Lockie Cowan, he's really stepped up. Do not drop this man. I love him so much. And the 3 votes goes to Matt Kennedy, who give this man midfield minutes. I don't care if the midfield's slow. I don't care if things aren't going right in there. He has shown over this last month or so when things aren't going right that you can rely on Matt Kennedy to keep going and be one of your better players. 3 votes to you, bloody Matty Kennedy. I've been very critical of you at a lot of stages, but I'll always put my hand up and say when I get things wrong, and Matt Kennedy's becoming one of my favorite players. I love everything about him. Now, last thing. I've spoken so much of this time, and maybe I won't go into this discussion as much. I might save it for when I've got Lockie to go back and forth with, but I guess media meltdown is the topic I'm going to go with this week, and it's about Andrew Russell because he has announced. They announced it with 3 games left in the AFL season. So much on the line. Pivotal moment for us. News breaks. We announced it ourselves. Andrew Russell is retiring at season's end. Now, how many times on this podcast have we discussed and debated the strength and conditioning? Is it all Russell? Whose fault is it? Do we need to sack him? Do we move on? Well, wherever you sit in this debate, I feel like we've sat in both camps quite a lot throughout this journey. We're getting a new guy. So those that wanted it, they're going to get it. We're going to see something new. And that's where we sit. And I think at the end of the day, because I had a bit of a discussion with a guy on Twitter, and apologies if I was a bit rude and I wasn't maybe as responsive in actually giving you a bit more back and forth and explaining my thoughts. I'm just so tired of this discussion. I feel like I've made my points really clear on this, in that I've questioned a lot of Andrew Russell. At times I've wanted him sacked, at times I haven't, and I've kind of backflipped on that a lot. At the end of the day, I've got to the point where I said there's a lot of issues in the fitness department. I don't know if they're his fault, but I just want a different set of eyes over it, because surely you can't get worse. That's where I was. My issue was not as much on Martin getting injured all the time, Chera doing 12,000 hamstrings in 12 months. Because I think some of this comes down to players. My issue is, what are we doing in the rehab? Why are players continually breaking down on the training park rather than in game? How are we managing their training loads? Why so many stress-related injuries? What are we doing to fix it? And why are new players now getting the same injuries? That were my question marks. But now we've got it. Now he's done. Now the conspiracies will really begin, I think, around it all. Why was it with 3 games to go? Why did we announce it now? And again, I don't know where I sit with it. I want to know everyone's thoughts about it all. Because Andrew Russell, when he came to the club, was the best in the business. And he showed a lot. He did some good work with, getting Charlie Curnow back. Cripper and Doherty come out talking and praising so much about him. So clearly not everything was bad with an Andrew Russell. We're the only club that has turned Andrew Russell into a shit show, made him really bad. You don't just become bad at your job after being the best so quickly. I think that there's problems at this club that aren't making it right. Is Vossi in the team? Are they selecting players that aren't fit? Are they rushing players back? Are we stretching the budget because we put it all in Andrew Russell? What isn't going right? What's the disconnect? The fact that we've announced this so far before the season's ended makes me believe that it wasn't his call. We've given him the sack. I don't think Andrew Russell would be a guy that comes out and says, nah, I'm done. I think he would have fought for it a little bit more. Why is that the case? What's gone wrong? What conflict has there been? Maybe Russell's saying, you're not doing the right job for me. You're bringing back guys too quickly. It's an interesting discussion, but I think when you look at the final piece of it all, and I want to have this discussion bigger at another time with Lockie, but You look at Josh Weddle's comments after that game. He said, we know Carlton struggle in those last quarters. They're not fit. They can't run around the ground. And then obviously when the injuries happen, well, let's tire them out early and we'll be able to run over the top. And that's exactly what they did. But why is the opinion of every club, because it's going to be widespread, that we can't run, that we don't have a tank? Is it a recruiting issue that we're not recruiting runners? Are we not fit? What's going on? At least right now, we can make a decision to attempt to fix it. And the proof's going to be in the pudding. Proof is going to be out there. Do we select someone and all of a sudden in 12 months you say, wow, everyone that said it was Russell's fault's correct? Or are we going to look and it's worse? Are we going to look and it's the same and go, oh, maybe it's not just Andrew Russell? I don't care which way it is for my own opinion. I just want to be it. I want to look back and say it's Andrew Russell's fault, because at least that means we're good now. The fitness is right. The players are perfect. But I think it's a widespread issue. I think there's multiple reasons for us not being fit. End of the day, it falls on his shoulders. Who do we get now? We've already been linked to Darren Burgess. I know he's worked with Vossi at Port Adelaide, and he's been, one of the best in their business. My concern when you do this is the concern of hiring Andrew Russell. It's concern of hiring, Cookie. We're bringing in who was the best, not necessarily who is going to be the best. Feels like we're always asking. It's like that Malthouse thing again. We're bringing in who we think was the best. And is that what got us into this position? So I'll be very interested to know what's happening. Seems like when you sack a guy or he retires with 3 weeks to go, it's because you almost have a plan in place. You wouldn't announce that unless there was something going on and you maybe had his replacement already sewn up. So watch this space. Let's see what happens. If you've got any recommendations on what we should do with the fitness department, drop it in the comments. But it's going to be another big discussion for the rest of this season. We need to be fit. We need our players firing. And we need to recruit players that are there. But it's not going to be the only appointment made or move for Carlton in the offseason. God, I hate that this is happening. What an awful game. Everything that possibly went wrong. We're injury riddled. 2 games to go. The sky's falling. But we're going to keep going. Lockie will be back soon on the podcast with me. We're about to get to our 200th episode. Very exciting time, at least for us. It's hard to cover everything right now. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I've buried it again about 2 hours in. If you're watching this on YouTube and you see the lovely t-shirt behind me, it means the world to us to support us in that way. If you want to show monetary support and get a lovely t-shirt, it's right there behind me. If you're listening in audio form, it's on our socials. Head over to the Big Cartel. Links will be in the description to have a look at it. Sizes are limited at this stage. Stock is limited. We only have a few left in just about every size. I think we're sold out of larges. So if you want a tee, get them before they sell out. Don't complain to me afterwards that you couldn't get your hands on one. You've had the ample time. I'm giving you the opportunity. Obviously, if you don't have the money to do it right now, don't need to. You listening to this is all the support, and it means a massive amount to us. The fact that we're about to get to 200 episodes and that people are listening, people are commenting, giving their questions, following along, having these discussions. I mean, that's just insane to me, and it will always be that way. But we're not going to stop. We'll be back here Wednesday night on Blue Abroad, 8 p.m. on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast in audio form to build up the West Coast game. The positivity will be there. I know this has been a depressing episode. It's a depressing time, but we've got 2 games left. We can still make finals. Fuck everything else. Let's gear up and go towards that. We'll park all the other discussions about why everything is so bad when we need to discuss it. But the preview show, the build-up show, it's when we try to get hyped. And I'll do my best, fingers crossed, to hype us up for 2 more weeks because we're all crazy. We're nutters. We're going to watch it. We're going to be there. No one's going into that game going, let's lose this and fuck our season even more. Like, we're all sick in the head, me included, but we're going to want us to win. So let's build that up, and you'll hear that this week. And hopefully Lockie will join me to review the West Coast game. But let me know your thoughts to everything we've covered in this episode. Even if you just need a vent, the therapy is in the comments. The therapy will be over on the socials. It's been a rough one. Up the bloody baggers. At least we're in this together. See you guys next time.